Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I hope you're doing well. Another week ahead of us and a lot going on, including the big breaking news. As we're recording this, it's all still sort of taking place, but Trump is in Egypt and is signing, as you're seeing there on screen, what's being described as a Gaza peace plan. Let me read you some background. I'll show you that video. U.S. President Donald Trump and several other world leaders signed a Gaza ceasefire deal during a summit in Egypt. Earlier in the day, Trump hailed a historic dawn of a new Middle East in remarks before the Israeli parliament. This came after Hamas returned the 20 remaining living hostages in Gaza to Israel under the U.S. brokered deal. It also handed over 4 coffins with the remains of deceased hostages, according to Israeli authorities. Some 250 Palestinian prisoners and more than 1,700 detainees from Gaza held by Israel without charge have now been released, and it goes on to describe the emotional scenes as people were reuniting with their family, which is very emotional and hopeful to see those reunifications. And as right before I play this video for you, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, as I've kind of been seeing some of the online chatter, a couple things that I want to address. One of the big things that right-wingers are screaming is that folks such as myself, who are opposed to Trump in the ways mostly, and liberal, that we are allowing our disdain for Trump to get in the way of applauding what he's doing. And while most of the time I disregard much right-wing criticism, I do just want to say I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that my opposition to Trump in general and his politics and all the destructiveness that he's brought on to America, that I don't let that blind my ability to root on a positive development. And that's what I'm doing here, and hoping for lasting peace and feeling so much joy for families reuniting and for presently a ceasefire, with a lot in terms of what comes next that's still up in the air. And so one of the parts that maybe they're taking issue with is just a lot of people going, yay on part 1, and then we need to see what comes next. And given the very recent history of, I mean, you heard the remaining 20 hostages, and in the past, like over 100 hostages were released under Biden, and then ceasefires that at the end of Biden's presidency that were agreed to, and then it looked, maybe kind of a similar series of events, and then the war raged on. And so that's the concern, and maybe what some on the right are picking up on is like refusal to credit Trump. But I'm very happy with what just happened the last few days, and then hopeful and concerned about if this can stick and if there will be lasting peace. And so I think that's kind of important to add up front here. And I mean, it's kind of similar to when we've talked about Ukraine, and kind of as I went to Ukraine and was particularly inflamed by Trump's actions while I was there, and seeing what it meant to people, that he was abandoning them in a lot of ways, and this affinity for Putin, how that got in the way of a reasonable foreign policy and being supportive of Ukraine, and how even with that very personal rage towards him as he's doing this Alaska summit with Putin, all of it, that then once he shifted his tone, now I don't actually think it's ended up manifesting enough at all yet, but I was still saying, hey, I'll cheer on if he'll shift to what for Ukraine is the path to peace, which is not kissing up to Putin, right? And I will credit him with that without ignoring the disaster of the months that came before it. And so a similar thing here, and that I'm going to try to hold myself to that, because the passion for peace is the top priority. And hopefully that is what comes of this. And if Trump can be a player in it, then that is good, of course. So here's him signing what is the peace plan.
Okay. This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up. Okay, thank you. You can use my pen.
So he's saying it'll hold up. That's, of course, what we are all hoping for. And as I laid out to you before, when the initial news broke, the big next questions to be addressed are now in a ceasefire, negotiations will be underway, and the demand will be that Hamas disarms and thus gives up power, and that someone else governs Gaza. And after all that we've seen from Hamas, is that something that they'll end up doing? I hope so. And then, time and time again, with Netanyahu and his sort of allies in the government, prioritizing their own power, their own priorities over lasting peace, will they find an excuse to continue the war? That is all yet to be known. But from where we stand now, I'm trying to be, as hopeful as I can. So then this is Trump with his... This is what's weird about covering this, is it's like a big historic moment, and sending all the positive energy that I can that this turned into lasting peace, and it's still Trump, So he's still going to be Trump. And that came up a few times where he's like, hey, the president of Egypt, you handle crime great. Authoritarianism. You're like, go do the peace deal. But what the? Similarly, as people walk on stage, he has to do his bizarre 3-hour-long handshake with them. There it is. Come here. Their hands have been clasped this whole time, podcast listeners. That was Macron. Oh, and I think we got a nearly record-breaking one there. And then you have here a UAE official. And listen to what Trump says here.
Egypt has to go, yeah?
Points. Well, here, you can take that down. It was glitching out. Points at the UAE official and says, unlimited cash. So, what am I supposed to do here? I'm doing everything so that my MAGA family doesn't accuse me of ignoring something positive. And then Trump points to the guy and says, unlimited cash. Remember, UAE, that was at the center of the huge investment in Trump's crypto. And then Trump removes the restrictions for them to get access to these very high value, high tech chips that they really wanted. Unconnected though. So a little strange to point at him and go, Mr. UAE, a lot of cash, because I got it, because he gave it to me. But okay, all right. Then there's Viktor Orban, another one of Trump's authoritarian buddies.
I got this one.
Yeah, okay. I think you get it. Then you have... this clip. These are notable. They're just notable. I don't know what else to tell you with the president of Egypt.
And I think you'll see some tremendous progress, both in the Middle East. This country is doing very well. It has good leadership. It's about leadership. And it's really nice when you say, how is your crime situation? And they don't even know what you're talking about. What do you mean crime? We don't have crime. Because if he has crime, he puts it out very quickly. Some people think that's not nice, but I think it's great.
So, Trump saying that a lasting peace agreement could manifest. I hope that it does. He's also unable to restrain himself from speaking more positively about his authoritarian friends than about any of our allies that are supposed to align more with our principles. You have Meloni standing behind Trump, as always, making distinct faces.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So Ben Meiselas said, I'm trying to understand. So Trump says Hamas is allowed to continue to patrol the streets in Gaza. Hamas says it has no intention of disarming. Israel says it will immediately seek to destroy Hamas infrastructure the moment hostages are returned. This is phase one. I understand the media wants to call a tenuous ceasefire a peace deal to heap praise on Donald, but structurally, can we at least admit this is concerning, especially when Donald does not agree to a two-state solution? Perhaps we should utilize critical thinking skills. And I mean, a moment, just in all transparency like this, I want to make sure that my analysis meets the moment, aligns with the facts, and also that my speculation is as informed as possible. And in a moment of a lot of uncertainty, that can be difficult. But I also know that my inclination is to be hyper extra, I think justifiably, critical of Trump. So whenever he says, we did it, here we go, it's sort of like, all right, the part that has manifest is great. And some of the specifics here for phase two seem like they could be the ingredients for the war continuing. And that's the last thing that anybody wants. So I think adults can mindfully absorb all of that information. And then the Pakistani president had this to say.
I would say that Pakistan had nominated President Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize.
I find it a little weird how much of a fixation that is. It's an award. How about we focus on and prioritize peace, and whatever awards may come or don't come can come or not come. Whatever needs to happen on the come front can happen. It can happen. But why is it such an obsession? Whenever the fixation is more about how this will be perceived in Trump's legacy or whatever, it comes off completely wrong to me. And he gets up and he's just, maybe this will be the guy who does it. I don't know, but it's just hard to imagine in weird imagery.
New York, I met with many of the people in this room, and it all just started coming together. I've known so many of you for so long. You're friends of mine. You're great people. I have a couple I don't like in particular, but I won't tell you who. I have actually a few of them I don't like at all, but you'll never find out who they are.
Could we just stay on the teleprompter for one event? Like this one might be the event where you could just stay on the teleprompter. So that's where things stand now. Phase one is taking place. That is really good. And Trump, for everything up until this point that he's done terribly in his foreign policy, I am glad that this took place. And we'll keep close track of what comes next. And especially with Trump's past statements on Gaza specifically, there's tons of reasons to, and I mean, again, it's like Trump, Netanyahu, and Hamas all have different reasons for a horrible next step, but maybe that won't happen. And that's what my heart is absolutely thumping for, is that it won't. And that it will in the, you know what I'm saying.